Hello and welcome to Success Great Podcast with yours truly, your host Hussein Talib. In this episode, we are going to be talking about your head, your mindset, and it is exactly important because you are where you are in life right now because you are what you repeatedly think. So, joining me for this episode of the Success Great Podcast, Shred, to talk about this thing between our ears, our head, our mindset. Shred helps mid-career professionals build unshakable confidence at work and their personal lives. He combines therapy and coaching to help his clients get rapid results. But first of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to do that so you'll get every new upload. So, welcome to the Success Secret podcast, Shred.
Hi, Hussein. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to have you here on the show. First of all, because this is the Success Secret podcast, I usually ask my guest this question. So, because success, what is it to you, and what do you think other people think of it, and that you don't agree with?
Sure. That's a great question to, start off the podcast. So success, the definition of success varies for each person. And for me, it is about doing things that I enjoy and working with people whom I, enjoy, working with. That's the simplest definition of success for me.
Mm. It's good to have like a very short, specific thing to do, and it is very important to have the circle with people around
Yeah,
you that you do have enjoy your time with because eventually our time in this earth is limited, so it's important to connect with other people that are important to us, right? And this is one of
exactly.
the things that are important for our like mindset or head, our minds, right? So now,
Exactly.
from what I understand, you worked in the tech industry, right?
Yep, yep.
And you are now talking about mindset.
Yes, I know.
So can you give us a short version of the story?
Definitely. I worked in the tech industry for about 12 years before I made a shift to becoming a therapist and, also doing coaching. So I was always interested in, mental health and psychology. Ever since I was young, I was reading books, the Eastern books as well as the Western philosophy, as well as the latest in neuroscience and things like that. I was just drawn towards those kind of topics always. So, there was a point, about 2 years back where I had, big, kind of a breakdown. You could say there was a lot going on in my personal life, and there was a point where I couldn't sleep for like 48 hours straight. And, that kind of was my first time where, I couldn't sleep for such an extended period of time. And I was kind of freaked out because I've never had, sometimes you have a little bit of sleep disturbance every now and then, but that was like too extreme for me. And that's when, first time I consulted with the psychiatrist and I was put on antidepressants. And, I also started taking therapy to help figure out, okay, I kind of knew what was the reason, but also, there was still a lot which was lurking within. And, the thing is, the talk therapy, it kind of helped me figure out the journey. But, once the medication, it wore off and we stopped the medication, symptoms still came back. My sleep was still irregular and I struggled a lot with it. And that's when I, realized that talk therapy was taking way too much time and it wasn't giving me the results. I was basically in a lot of pain because you can't sleep well and you can't function well. You're so irritable. I didn't like the version of me. And that's when I tried this technique called rapid transformational therapy. It's a form of hypnotherapy created by the therapist called Marisa Peer. And I'd heard about that, but that was the first time I decided, okay, let me just try it. And it worked like a charm for me. It worked wonders because it took me a couple of more weeks and months to completely come out of the issue, but it gave me a framework for understanding how my thought processes are working, how my mind is processing my emotions and things like that. So I enjoyed the process. I got better, and after a couple of months I decided to train as a therapist in that modality itself. And because I've been through that, I wanted to share that gift with other people as well, because I know how much painful it can be if you're going through some mental health issue. So that's kind of how my journey started into the mental health domain. And yeah, I enrolled for the course, I completed it, and then I started practicing it on my own after I think since last year, since August of 2023 is when I've been practicing full time. Yes.
Mm. That's amazing story. So that when you had these issues, you thought to yourself when you are in the process of like let's say healing, you were sure like a lot of people would have suffer a lot of things. Like you mentioned, there are things that would appear on the surface and things that you would not know about. You would need someone else to intervene and like see, diagnose you and know what are the issues are that you don't know. So you would get better in your mental health and the whole as a humans, right? So you want to help other people, but when you started that, how would you describe a mindset? Like for example, our mental
Yeah.
health mindset. We're talking
Yeah.
about the brain, the mind. What is
Yeah.
what is this kind of thing? Is exactly?
Yeah, definitely. I know like it's very important for us to define the vocabulary and to have a shared understanding of what each word means, right? So, like I'll try to, simplify it as much as I understand. So, like we all understand what is a thought. It's something that we think about, right? it doesn't have a physical form, but it's something very amorphous. But you are all familiar with what's a thought. A thought which you repeatedly think becomes a belief system, and a belief system, which a collection of related belief systems becomes your mindset. So if you were to, constantly think about, say, eating chocolates, right? That becomes a belief saying sugar equal to happiness. And, if I constantly keep, thinking about, okay, eating chocolates, eating pastries and things like that, then my mindset is all about eating junk food. So that's kind of how I would define, what a thought is, what a belief is, and what a mindset is. And when it comes to the distinction between what is the brain, what is the mind, so brain is the physical organ, and mind, the generally accepted definition is kind of like an energy field around us, and it's not a physical organ as such. Some people use the terms brain and mind interchangeably. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, I know how to drive a car. I don't need to know how every part in it works. So that's kind of how I look at it. And when it comes to the mind, there is, like, broadly speaking, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the thinking mind, right? Like right now, when I'm talking to you, I'm interpreting every word you say, and I'm framing sentences, and I'm talking back to you. So that is the conscious mind. The subconscious mind is where, all your memories are stored, your beliefs, your thought patterns, your emotions, your mindset, everything is stored in the subconscious mind. And, as scientists estimate, our conscious mind is maybe like 5 to 10%, but the subconscious mind is like 90 to 95%. And that kind of runs our life on autopilot.
Yeah. So that's basically a lot of our lives are on autopilot. Like 90% is a lot of
Yeah.
us. Like basically walking into life, not realizing a lot of things that we don't do or sometimes we do without thinking about, which is makes us like a great creature, like one of the best creatures that exist, right? So this is because we
Yeah.
have this type of system. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the mindset is like because it is like a belief system and the thought that's coming, the thoughts that will turn into beliefs. So we have a lot of thoughts in a day, maybe in an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Maybe around 50,000 thoughts in a day, roughly, give or take.
how many?
50,000 thoughts in a day.
Okay. So these 15,000, 15 or 50?
50, 50,
Oh,
50.
50,000. Okay. So these 50,000 thoughts, like how many of them are going to impact our mind, our body, our whole as a human?
Every single of them impact us. That's the reality. But the thing is, if you really observe in our day-to-day life, majority of the thoughts which we think are repetitive in nature. We keep thinking about, okay, well, okay, what food should I eat next? Okay, when should I, get up? Or, or if there is a problem, we tend to worry about it or we try to solve it. So if you really observe within a span of 24 hours, the majority of the thoughts that we think are repetitive. Fresh thoughts are so a small percentage, I could say. And every thought has an impact on, the mind, the body.
Yeah, definitely. So this mindset now, because it is basically our belief system. Now, some might say, yes, I believe this, but I do want to do something else, but I can't because my mindset is my brain or my mindset is not helping me do that. So
Yeah,
basically, what their belief system is, they are used to route A, and they want to change it to B, but what's the solution to switch it? Is it about habits? What is the solution to get this and switch things from A to B, from A to Z to have
yeah.
better life?
Yeah, definitely, right. So the main cause for this is conflicting beliefs. Thing is, okay, let me take an example of, okay, I want to be healthy, but I want to eat ice cream. So both of these are conflicting beliefs. So the thing is, like let's say I have always, let's say I have a sweet tooth. I actually do, and I, have been eating, say, chocolates and ice creams for really long time. And now, say it's New Year, and then I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to become very healthy. I'm going to kick sugar. I have, say, maybe 30, 35 years of programming versus one or 10 thoughts. Let's say, like, the subconscious mind, see, there is like, how many times would I have thought about eating sugar in the entire span of my life? In a day, I would have thought of, let's say, at least 100 times, multiply that by so many number of years. So, it's a huge number of times I've thought about just, associating sugar with pleasure. But, I'm just thinking about like, okay, I want to be healthy. And then, all of a sudden, obviously, the gravity of the old thoughts is going to be much more higher compared to the new one, which I may, which is why it's always so difficult for us, when we are
Mm,
starting a new habit. And sometimes you have the initial high, but after a point that high wears off, and you still tend to go back to the old patterns. It's because those old patterns have been there for quite a long time. So now how do we break this pattern, right? So the biggest way to do it is through repetition, right? Like anything which you do, by repetition, it becomes like a second nature. We never think twice about how to brush our teeth because we have been doing it. Same goes when you're learning to drive, right? You do it enough times, it becomes muscle memory. Basically, when we say something is muscle memory, it has permeated into the subconscious mind. So how is the subconscious mind formed? It's just basically the thoughts which you repeatedly think in your conscious mind permeate and they go into the subconscious mind, and that's how those belief systems and patterns are doing formed. So by repeatedly thinking about the same thing and by doing actions which align with those thoughts is how we create new habits and new patterns. I know it's not always easier because like sometimes the old ways of doing things are so comfortable, and the mind's nature is to go back to whatever is comfortable, which is where techniques like hypnotherapy come into help. Because in hypnosis you're in a much relaxed state where you're directly accessing your subconscious mind, so you can shift your mindset in an instant, versus constantly repeating your affirmation 100 times with your conscious mind, versus doing it in hypnosis has a tremendous like difference.
yeah. So we wanna replace certain habits and make them to, let's say, good habits or whatever it is that we wanna do or achieve. But
Yeah.
that would definitely take time, right? That will
Yes.
take time, and we need to be a little bit strong
Yes.
to fight the temptations.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it is, we always try our mind, the subconscious that is used to something. It
Yes.
tries always to go back to what it's used to do, what it's
Yeah.
used to happen to us, like on autopilot, to do
Yeah.
everything what we are programmed. Because eventually, like for example, if we're talking about gyms or whatever it is, like eventually not going to the gym, for example, for 6 months or a year, that is basically consistency to not go. So you need to
Exactly.
So you need to reverse that and
Yeah.
to be consistently going.
Yes, yes. That's a wonderful way in which you put like, so that's what, when somebody says, like I would say, okay, you already have the habit of consistency, except you just don't go to the gym. Now we just need to reverse it. So the
Mm,
way in which we do it is like we use the principle of pleasure and pain. So we are not naturally drawn towards pleasure and we naturally move away from pain. That's how we do it in life. So, like when like try to create, bring in a new habit or a thought or something of that sort, we try to associate a lot of pleasure with it. And the thing is, it's something, it might not even be pleasurable in the beginning, but we are kind of confusing the mind or tricking the mind into believing, oh, this is pleasurable. Oh, yes, eating an apple after a meal is pleasurable rather than eating an ice cream after a meal. So initially it feels weird, but you kind of, trick your mind into believing, oh, this is way more pleasurable.
yeah, definitely. Like I don't know who said that, but the hardest thing for a human to work is their head, their mind, their brains. So we
Yeah,
need to we need to work on that in our minds because eventually it is I would say like it's a muscle like our physical muscles, right? It needs to be
absolutely.
trained because if we don't train it, we always go to the what we see or what the mind sees as easier path to go to eat the sugars, to go eat whatever it is that is in front of us. So we need to have this habit of training like as much as we can of our body physically or mentally.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Definitely. So these things, this mindset, these things relate to work, working with yourself, working with others, working with like relationship. I guess with money.
Yeah.
So are all of these that you mentioned, like for example, having hypnotherapy, making better habits, will all of these help us improve for the person forward in their life, whether in regards to their work, their job, their relationships, whether with people or with money, for example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. So the thing is, let's take the example of, say, money, right?
Mm,
Like sometimes, we might have seen people who work really, really hard and they put in all the effort and everything, but they just don't seem to be making money. Or even if they get money, it just slips away from their fingers. We would have seen such kind of people, or we might ourselves be in that particular segment. So why is this happening, right? It's not like because it's all fate or it's ill fate or something of that sort. It's because that person has a negative relationship with money. And these things are, these programs, we build these programs when we are young. By the age of 8 to 10, most of our belief systems about love, money, relationships, everything is formed. And we pick up these cues from our parents, our family, our society, and we create these things. So if let's say I grew up in a household where money was difficult to come by, or we didn't or we grew up poor, then for me, in the back of my head, I would always say, okay, money doesn't come, money doesn't last, so I will subconsciously find a way to sabotage. I know that even if I get money, I will find a way to sabotage it without even noticing it. So, what happens in hypnotherapy is we regress the client to go back to the root cause. It's all about figuring out the root cause. And once you know what is the root cause, it becomes very easy to change the thing. So, we'll take them back to some scenes, maybe from the childhood or something, where they picked up these beliefs about a particular issue. In this case, it could be about, say, money, about scarcity, and things like that. And then once they say it for themselves, rather than me diagnosing them, giving them a label, they realize that, oh, yeah, this is why I have been acting this way. Then it becomes very easy for them to change. So that's kind of how, hypnotherapy helps. We go back, we see the reason for it, and then we reframe it and give it a new meaning.
yeah, you mentioned like, because we are what we really do. Like you mentioned when we are like kids, seeing from our parents, the people who influence us as kids, the bad things, the good things, the no's, the yeses. So these things stay with us like as for basically as long as we live unless we choose to stop and pause and decide to shift things around and change the way that we want to go if we see that is not a good fit for us,
Yeah,
right? So that's a
exactly.
big issue.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
definitely. So now, speaking of that, how would you like, for example, yourself, one
mm,
of the people that have you worked with,
yeah,
whether they helped you out or you helped them, what is one of the things that you saw that
yeah,
actually, or give you some kind of advice that
yeah,
actually you said or was some kind of an aha moment for you and changed everything for you?
yeah. Uh, I would say that every client I have helped has helped me also in some way. The whole point, for me to even train to be in an RTT therapist was to basically fix my own mindset, fix my own belief systems, right? It was purely like a selfish motive, you could say. And that's kind of how my journey even started. And every time, like I work with somebody and, they share something and it is either something which I've overcome already, and that gives me a sense of gratitude like, oh, yes, I was also in that place the person was in, but I'm glad I'm no longer there and I've moved on and that I'm able to help people. And sometimes, like it would be something very similar. The client would also be going through something very similar to what I'm going through. It might be something which I've never even paid attention to, but when they say, the spark goes on in my head. I'm like, damn, I need to pay attention to this. I also keep doing this. And so, like that, like there have been like so many things, right? Like in terms of my relationship with money, in terms of, love, letting in people into my life. There have been so many such things where, I have learned a lot from every single one of my clients.
That's very important because it is about giving and taking, or taking and giving. So
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
could
There
learn
needs to be
from each side.
balance.
Yeah, yeah. So would you say, like in a very short sentence or as a takeaway, what would you advise people to do if they wanna like switch things, switch their belief system, have a better mindset, and drive forward in their business and their lives or career?
Yeah. So I think, the quote by Albert Einstein, right? Insanity is doing the same things, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So if you notice in your life that you're not getting this results and you keep doing the same thing, it's time to switch things up. So, just make a list of things which are not going as well as you would want it to be or not going good at all, and then make a list of all the actions which you are taking towards those things, and it's time to switch them up. And you should, and the first step is like journaling is a wonderful tool which I always recommend. The first, like a first aid kit, I would say, journaling and self reflection itself gives us a lot of insights about how we think. You don't have to run to a therapist or a coach for every little problem, and that's not sustainable also. So definitely journaling helps, and then like maybe speaking with a friend or somebody who can be unbiased and impartial helps. And if all of those things doesn't help, then like seeking out help from a coach or a therapist who knows how to work with the mind, who knows how to help people switch thoughts and belief systems would be the course of action I would recommend.
Definitely. So, speaking of these, do you recommend certain type of tools, resources, or books in that regard?
Uh, yeah, I mean, so the thing is, like pretty much Marisa Peer, who's the creator of RTT, she's written a couple of books. I love pretty much every single of her books. So she written a book called The Guide to Ultimate Self-Confidence. So that the book is written itself in a hypnotic fashion. So just by reading the book, you will become confident. So that's the power of that book. So she's used very hypnotic language. So, just by reading it over and over, even without you consciously taking any effort, you will start noticing that. I had read that book a couple of years back, and I was like, by the time I finished the book, I felt like a different person. So she's written similar such books about, losing weight, That was also like an amazing book, which kind of goes into the theory, but as well as it just programs your mind in a different way just by reading it. And then her latest book about to tell yourself a better life. That was like one of the best books which I had read. Trying to understand about the root cause behind the symptoms. Normally, we see the symptoms. Okay, somebody is overweight, somebody has this illness, or somebody is having a scarcity mindset. But when you are able to map it to the root cause, it becomes so much. It starts making so much sense, and it becomes so much more easier to change away from that. So those are some of the books which I would recommend for
Awesome,
beginners,
awesome,
definitely.
amazing. So eventually, we need to have this circle. We need to make our belief system bigger and better. We need to get out of this zone, right, and push ourselves forward and change everything. Like we need to define some kind of something. Maybe it's gravity. I don't know. Whatever it is, you have
Yeah.
to create some kind of a new perspective into things. That's very important if you want to advance in whatever it is that you want to advance, and if you want to better your business or your life in general. So thank you, Shred, for being with me on this episode of the Success Secret podcast. Where can people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Uh, so they can, check out my website, Sridhar.coach, Sridhar.coach. That would be the best way to, find me. And I do write on LinkedIn every single day. So those would be the two places to find me. And thanks a lot for having me on the show, Hussein.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on this episode with me on the Success Secret podcast.
All right, bye.